Hi, I'm Carrie Seeger, Regional Director of Health and Productivity with Assured Partners. Together with my counterpart, Kristen Meschler, we'd like to give you a short presentation on managing stress through this changed environment. Our role is to work with our clients on wellness strategy, and we know that in order to impact other aspects of our health, including physical health, that mental health needs to be in tune.
All right, welcome everybody. As Carrie said, I'm Kristen, and we're very excited to be with you today and talking about what is a very important topic, especially now more than ever in the current landscape. As far as our agenda for today, we're going to start out and talk a little bit about the different types of stress. I don't think most people realize there are different types. And then we're going to go into the stress response and its impact, especially during a quarantine. But the majority of what we want to hit on today is truly fundamentals, effective things that you can do to try and manage the stress that you're feeling right now. And we'll end kind of talking a little bit about mindfulness and some ways that you can seek out maybe some further help for your mental well-being. And we are going to try and end things on a light note and give you a little something to laugh at the end. So to start out, as I mentioned, there are two types of stress, eustress and distress. When we think about stress, we're typically thinking about distress. So that's kind of like the negative stress. Those are things like maybe tied to work stress, financial stress, things of that nature. And that tends to be where we see the negative impacts of stress. But there can also be positive forms of stress too. A perfect example is Carrie and I right now when we're giving this presentation. This is actually a positive stress. It gets our heart rate going because we want to make sure that we do a good job in presenting good information for all of you. But it's a good thing. It makes us feel good. We feel energized afterwards. That's an example of positive stress. It's important to kind of understand the difference so that when you are experiencing things like distress, you can better understand how to respond to those things and maybe what you can do. So we're going to focus today, our presentation today is really kind of focusing more on this idea of distress, so the negative stress, because that's where we tend to see more negative impacts on individual health. This is tied directly to the stress response. And this is something that is fundamental to humans. It's fundamental to our existence, and believe it or not, the stress response is actually there to protect us and keep us safe. So as far back to when we were cavemen, typically that stress response was there to let us know that we were in a dangerous situation, and it allowed our body to react so that we could protect ourselves. Typically, this has to do with things like if you are being chased by a bear, your body will experience that stress response, which kicks up your endorphins and allows you to react. And at that point, you kind of have to decide, are you going to fight that bear or are you going to flee from that bear? I hope if you're ever in that situation that you flee, but I guess that choice is yours if you ever find yourself in that situation. But what does this look like when we're in the current landscape that we're in today? What does that stress response look like when we're in, say, a quarantine? Unfortunately, our bodies are experiencing that stress response on a regular basis, maybe because we're feeling regular anxiety, a little bit of depression, we're feeling isolated. That can impact our sleep. Was just having a conversation with some folks the other day and learned that when we are experiencing stress response, it can actually impact our sleep. We don't get as deep of a sleep as we normally would. So even though you may be sleeping 8 hours and you wake up and you say, gosh, I just don't feel as rested as I normally feel. That's because your body isn't allowing you to fall into as deep of a sleep as you normally would. Again, so that in an instant, if you need to be roused, you can be. For many of us, it takes the form of insomnia. Maybe you're just feeling fearful about your situations. Confusion, boredom, anger, frustration, these are all very normal responses. Unfortunately, it does take a toll on our physical health as well when we're constantly having that chemical cocktail that corresponds with the stress response. It does impact our physical health, and oftentimes in a negative way. So what can we do with stress? Typically, stress is going to fall into 3 categories. Stress that we can either eliminate altogether, so maybe undue pressure that we put on ourselves, that we can change or maybe modify to make it less stressful. So again, maybe related to work, these are things like, can we change some of our practices? Can we create some to-do lists? Can we get a little bit more organized so that we can better manage the tasks that may be causing some of that stress? And then there is the change that, we have to just learn how to accept. And especially in the current environment that we're in, I think we're finding that a lot of the stress that we feel is maybe something that we have to learn how to accept. Even in that 3rd category, when we have to accept a certain amount of stress or pressure, we can also still come at it from a different perspective. Perspective is a beautiful thing, and it allows us to kind of say, okay, I can't do anything about this, but maybe what I can change is how I respond to it. What I can change are the practices that I do for myself to try and care for my mental well-being. I always love to include this Mark Twain, quote, "I have known a great many troubles, but most of them never happened." I really try to live by that because I find that I create so much stress in my mind, even in this, situation that we're in right now with many of us being at home and being quarantined. It's easy, especially when you're watching the news and you're on social media, it's so easy to kind of go to those worst case scenarios, when in reality, the likelihood is that we will all come out of this, and we will move on. We will be stronger because of it. And so it is kind of that situation where if we spend all of our time just thinking about those worst case scenarios, the likelihood is we probably won't get to that point. And things will likely be a lot better than we think.
We have one body, and it's important that we take care of that body. There's not a replacement out there. And here are some key things that we need to focus on to make sure that we're in the best health. They interact amongst each other. So for example, you may notice if you have too much alcohol, it affects your sleep. And your sleep is very important. It's the time that your body recharges. It corrects things, it fixes things. It's working hard while you're relaxing at night. Staying active is very important when you're enduring stress. As Kristen mentioned, that stress cocktail earlier, where we have hormones that are flooding our bodies when things are happening to us, the adrenaline as well as cortisol. And if that sits in our body and is not pushed out and moved out, it will create inflammation and additional stress within our physical body and create issues and inhibit the way that our bodies can defend sicknesses that we encounter. Eating nutritionally, again, as I mentioned, these really all coincide with each other. You'll find that if you try to focus on eating healthy for 1, 2, 3 days in a row, you're going to feel better. And when you feel better, you'll want to move more. It all works together. Limiting that screen time is very hard for all of us to do right now. I'm very much a victim of that. And relaxing and recharging. For those of you who are working from home, you'll find that sometimes you're working more than you were before. It's not uncommon for me, since I work from home and have worked from home for 6 years, to come downstairs and knock out a project on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning, only to show up to work on Monday and feel like I never had some time off. These are all things that you need to consider.
So caring for your mind is just as important as caring for your body. First and foremost, it's important to keep a routine. As humans, we are creatures of habit. And when we sort of live in constant chaos, it puts us in flux. And it's tougher for us to mentally stay connected with the things that are important to us. So first and foremost, keep a routine. And it's going to look different, especially when you're at home every day, but come up with what that new normal looks like. Create that new normal for yourself and try to stick to it as much as possible. So as Carrie said, kind of going back to what she was talking about, that ties in with how you're caring for your body in terms of trying to keep that regular nightly routine of when you're going to bed. Obviously, there will be some exceptions, but try to have those consistent schedules in terms of your wake time, your sleep time, eating times. Keep that routine. It is important. Also limiting exposure to news. Carrie talked about that in terms of our screen time. But the thing is, oftentimes what we're doing is we're taking in all of these news stories. And as I mentioned before, so much of it is kind of creating this worst case scenario picture. And what that does for us mentally, the amount of anxiety that it creates in us, it's really tough. So my recommendation is, pick 1 to 2 news sources, check in with them daily, and be done. Let it go. Find what it is that you trust, find what it is that you like, check in because it is important, but then it's time to kind of turn it off and get back to your routine. Keep yourself busy. So, for those of us that are maybe working less than we normally are, it gives us some extra time. And, we've all heard that idle hands. Find something to do. Look for maybe some household projects that you can get into. Pick back up that hobby that you put away years ago because you just haven't had time. Pick it back up. Stay busy. Keep your mind fresh. It absolutely will help you to engage in an activity. Engaging means something where you kind of forget about everything else while you're doing it because you are mentally engaged in what you're doing. That's extremely important. And of course, focus on the positives. One of the great things I think that has come out of this situation is there's actually a lot more outlets right now for positive news. I think we're all in the same boat. We're all feeling anxiety. We're all feeling fear about what's going on. And there are some really great places right now where you can look for positivity, even if it's just sharing some of the silly, funny memes about our current situation with your friends. But that can be a great way. Focus on the things that you have to be grateful for in your life, your family, your friends, your loved ones, your health. These are extremely important things that maybe when you're feeling down, when you're feeling that anxiety kick in and things are getting a little out of control, begin to start thinking about those wonderful gifts that you have in your life. That alone can make a huge impact and oftentimes a very immediate impact. If you can start kind of ticking through, what are those wonderful things that I have? Let me focus on that for a little bit. Lean on your beliefs, lean on your spiritual beliefs, whatever they might be for you personally, but lean on that. It gives so many of us peace at a time where we're feeling, a lot of instability. Leaning on those core moral, spiritual beliefs, that can really be a positive thing for us as well. And then mostly I would say set goals, set achievable goals, things that you can do. And sometimes they can be really simple and small. It's get up early or go to bed early. Make it achievable and then do that. Connecting with others, that's extremely important. That's why we kind of wanted to give it its own focus here. But first and foremost, make those connections. Just because you can't physically be with people, we're lucky that we live in the age of technology, so we can do things like have Zoom calls, we can FaceTime, we can text, we can send emails, we can instant message. Do all of these things. Find ways to connect with your friends, your family, and the people who matter. It makes a difference and it can absolutely brighten your day. Doing for others. I think this is important as well. Right now, when our world is in crisis, there is no better time than right now to be thinking about things that you can do for the community and the world at large. There's a ton of great charities out there, local organizations, or maybe it's even just something as simple as, if you have a neighbor or someone in your community, people in your community that may be highest at risk, maybe it's difficult for them to get out and run errands. If that's something that you can take on, not only does it help the individual, but believe it or not, it helps you too. It will give you a sense of hope, a sense of positivity that can do more than you can even believe. Support family and friends, right? This is the time to connect with our networks, do for them, find ways that we can help. And there's some really great ways to do that, you know, again, and I'll give you a perfect example. Carrie and I recently, and our teammate Rachel, we've been virtual workout buddies. So twice a week we get together, we hold each other accountable so that we can keep some activity in our life. And it's a fun way to be connected. We know we're doing the same workout at the same time. It's that text of ready, set, go. And we have a great time. You know, also with some of our colleagues, what we've started doing is sharing photos weekly. We have a different theme each week that we come up with. And there's a group of us, we share photos, we vote on which one we like the best that week. It's just bragging rights, but it's a good way to sort of keep us connected. And like I said, get creative. Come up with fun ways that you can connect with others. Maybe it's recipe sharing, you know, maybe it's, you know, reading the same book and having a virtual book club, but get creative and be sure that you connect.
Long-term exposure to stress will wreak havoc on your health. Take a look at what you're enduring. We all are experiencing the same thing. However, it's, I should say, we're all in the same environment, but we're experiencing something different depending on our situation. Some of you may have a house full of family and it may seem like you're on top of each other. Others may be home alone. Maybe someone's maybe has some sickness, either themselves or in their family. So there's a lot of different things that are going on that you may not be aware of from the people around you or even yourself. The other evening I woke up with a nightmare and had some anxiety, and it was something that was new to me. And it made me realize that I probably am enduring some kind of stress that is in my subconscious, and I need to take care of that. I need to talk to someone about it, a friend, a coworker like Kristen, or your employer's EAP, Employer Assistance Program, which is free phone calls to counselors that can help you through many different situations. And take a look at yourself in terms of where can I improve on my physical health, my emotional health, social, etc. Even your financial well-being. Are you making the appropriate decisions? Many of us are experiencing maybe a loss of income, either in full or in part, which is a lot to deal with. Here's a quote that Kristen and I like to talk about. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So I want everyone out there to have hope, but also have no reality. Know that this virus is not going away in the immediate future, and likely our lives will be changed for many, many more months into the future. Have hope, embrace the positive aspects of being home with your family, and know that there are still very negative things going out there in our environment. Reach out to things that resources that may help you. As I mentioned, the EAP. There's also lots of great apps out there that can help you stop, think, and breathe. On this last slide, Chris and I have added our favorite memes. I'm sure you've seen your share as well. We thought you would enjoy these.